Welcome back, Keyforgers. I hope you are all well. We are on to round 2 of series 4, I believe, which means we're on Age of Ascension, and I've remembered to hit the record button this time. Let's have a look at what we've got. Logos, Brobnar and Dis, N. Skelton, the Tower Rioter. Sorry, the Town Rioter. And that is an angelic looking Archon there, those huge wings, short stumpy hands and a nice elongated head. Let's take a closer look. There is a closer look. Logos, Brobnar and Dis, bottom card coming out. We're starting out with the Logos. Ooh, nice. That is Redacted. It's an artifact. After you choose Logos as your active house, place 1 amber from the common supply on Redacted. When there are 4 or more amber on Redacted, sacrifice it and forge a key at no cost. Rocket Boots is an upgrade. This creature gains Fight Reap. If this is the first time this creature was used this turn, ready it. A second Rocket Boots. Quantum Finger Trap is an artifact. You get an amber when you play it. Action. Swap the position of 2 creatures in a battle line. Jar Goggle, 2 power with elusive. Play. Put a card from your hand face down under Jar Goggle. Destroyed. If it is your turn, play the card under Jar Goggle. Otherwise, archive that card. Interdimensional Graft is an action. You get an amber when you play it. Play. If an opponent forges a key on their next turn, they must give you their remaining amber. Backup Copy is an upgrade. You get an amber when you play it. This creature gains Destroyed. Put this creature on top of your deck. Standardized Testing is an action. Play. Destroy each creature with the lowest power and each creature with the highest power. Are we getting like we did last time in the previous deck with very limited creatures? It appears so. Library of Babel is an artifact. Action. Draw a card. A second Library of Babel. Helperbot, 1 power. Play. You may play 1 non-logos card this turn. Igor, 2 power. Play. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck. Add 1 to your hand and discard the others. That is Logos with 3 creatures. We are now moving on to Dis. And we have Tentacus, 5 power. Your opponent must pay you 1 amber in order to use an artifact. Pain Reaction is an action. You get an amber when you play it. Play. Deal 2 damage to an enemy creature. If this damage destroys that creature, deal 2 damage to each of that creature's neighbours. Life Ward is an artifact. You get an amber when you play it. Omni ability. Sacrifice Life Ward. Your opponent cannot play creatures on their next turn. Unlocked Gateway is an action. Omega. So after you play this card, you end the current step. Play. Destroy each creature. Shula, 5 power. Play. If your opponent has 4 amber or more, steal 1 amber. A second Shula. Not Finished With You is an action. You get an amber when you play it. Play. Shuffle any number of creatures from your discard pile into your deck. Misery Exploit is an action. Play. Gain 1 amber for each damaged enemy creature. Gub, 1 power. While Gub is not on a flank, it gets plus 5 power and gains Taunt. Dust Imp, 2 power. Destroyed. Gain 2 amber. Charette, 4 power. Play. Capture 3 amber. Binding Irons is an action. Play. Your opponent gains 3 chains. On to Brobnar finally. We have Champion's Challenge, which is an action. Play. Destroy each enemy creature except the most powerful enemy creature. Destroy each friendly creature except the most powerful friendly creature. Ready and fight with your remaining creature. The Flex is an action. Play. Choose a ready, friendly Brobnar creature. Exhaust it and gain amber equal to half its power, rounding down the game. Big creatures, let's go. Grunt Buggy is an artifact. You get an amber when you play it. Your opponent's keys cost plus 1 amber for each friendly creature with power 5 or higher. Your keys cost plus 1 amber for each enemy creature with power 5 or higher. Flamethrower is another artifact. Action. Deal 1 damage to a creature with 1 damage splash. There we go, finally. That's a nice flex target. Lollop the Titanic, 11 power, but it deals no damage when attacked. Gauntlet of Command is another artifact. Action. Ready and fight with a friendly creature. Gengar Chieftain, 5 power. Play. You may ready and fight with a neighbouring creature. A second Gengar Chieftain. Foozle, 5 power. Reap. If an enemy creature has been destroyed this turn, gain 1 amber. Coward's End is an action. Play. Destroy each undamaged creature. Gain 3 chains. And a second Coward's End. 1/2 punch is an action. You get an amber when you play it. Play. Stun an enemy creature. If that creature was already stunned, destroy it instead. Well, there were a few more creatures in that Brobnar, but that logo seemed a bit lacking for creatures. Let's have a closer look. I think we are on a roll with this series, Keyforgers. With that Kota Rush previously and this deck, I think this could be the best series we've had yet. This deck had 8 printed amber, 12 actions, 13 creatures, a whopping 8 artifacts, and 3 upgrades. If we start out with amber control, we had some scaling amber, interdimensional graft. Now this control is only really effective after your opponent forges a key, so their first key or their second key. If they're ramping, like our previous deck would have done, they have to give us any remaining amber that they had. So if they had 12 amber and they forged a key for 6, we'd be getting 6 amber, which would put us directly on check even if we had no amber for our next turn. A very good card. Usually you see it combined with Binate Rupture, which is double both players' amber pools, and then you play the interdimensional graft. But just having this interdimensional graft in the deck will make our opponent very, very conscious of not over ramping, which is very, very helpful for us because our control, probably the weakest part of this deck, next to obviously the artifact control. In Brobnar, we had Grunt Buggy. It's an artifact. Your opponent's keys cost +1 for each friendly creature with power 5 or higher. But it also affects us, so our keys will cost +1 for each enemy creature with power 5 or higher. Now we do have very good creature control in this deck, so I don't see that being a problem. The rest of control was in Dis. We had Tentacus. Our opponent must pay us 1 amber in order to use an artifact. If our opponent has a lot of artifacts with actions or omni abilities, this could prove quite beneficial to us. If they do though, it does mean Tentacus has a big target on their back. That is our only artifact control as well, but it is amber generation or possible amber generation. As well as amber control. We had Shula. 5 power, so a big body, does activate that Grunt Buggy. And I don't know if I mentioned, but all of our Brobnar creatures are actually 5 power or above. So Grunt Buggy, very, very effective. Shula, if our opponent has 4 amber or more, we steal 1. And then Chirette, 4 power, play, capture 3. So we do have ways to not only limit our opponent's amber total, but also steal and capture in this deck and make them a bit wary about activating their artifacts when we have Tentacus. Those 2 Shulas with a steal, that interdimensional graft, they could both be considered expected amber, that Tentacus being our amber control there. Our expected amber and our artifact control. Generation, we had 2 sets of rocket boots, upgrades and logos. Fight Reap ability, if it's the first time this creature was used this turn, ready it. Now this is very, very effective with some of the creatures that we'll be looking at in a sec. We have Dust Imp, destroyed, gain 2. We do have ways to bring that back as well. Misery Exploit. Play, gain 1 amber for each damaged enemy creature. With the size of the creatures we have in our Dis and Brobnar, and some of the abilities on our Brobnar creatures, we will be fighting quite a bit. So this could be quite a big ramp in amber for us. We had Fuzzle, I'm not too sure, 5 power. Reap, if an enemy creature has been destroyed this turn, gain 1. Now, I must mention we do have 2 Coward's Ends in this deck, which could work extremely well with Fuzzle if we can damage them a little bit. We had the Gauntlet Command, one of the 8 artifacts in there. Action, ready and fight with a friendly creature, which does help building up that Fuzzle Reap. And then we had the Flex. Choose a ready friendly Brobnar creature, exhaust it and gain amber equal to half its power, rounding down the loss. Now the majority of our creatures in Brobnar, 5 power, so that'd be 2 amber generation. But we have Lot Up the Titanic as well, 11 power. If you flex that, that's 5 amber straight away. Absolutely insane. It deals no damage when it's attacked. But when it fights, if it attacks into a creature, it will absolutely obliterate most things that your opponent can put down. So a very, very good combination there for generating quite a bit of amber over quite a short space of time. Actual creature control. Logo, standardized testing. Destroy each creature with the lowest power and each creature with the highest power. Potential almost a board wipe there. In Dis, we had the pain reaction for direct damage, 2 damage to an enemy creature, and if it destroys that creature, it deals 2 damage splash, so 2 each side. We had the unlocked gateway. Yes, it's Omega, but if you're really in a pinch, play destroy each creature. If your opponent is building up a bigger board, this is something you may want to play. Bearing in mind, try and play as many actions and reap out with those creatures, or those Dis creatures, before you activate this unlock gateway, because the Omega will push you into your draw step, your end of turn. The 2 Coward's End, like I said, in Brobnar, destroy each undamaged creature. So you want to try and get as much damage on your creatures. Bit counterintuitive with that misery exploit there, but if you can do it, you can wipe the board. It could be a potentially very good Foozle Fozzle Reap. Champions Challenge is another board wipe, both sides. Each player will keep their most powerful creature and then they fight into each other. We had the 1-2 punch to stun a creature. If it was already stunned, we destroy it instead. It's the only stun we've got in the deck. I can't see it being used for that second ability there. But stunning a creature, again slowing your opponent down. Another artifact was the Flamethrower. It has an action of deal 1 damage to a creature with 1 damage splash. Very, very effective at popping wards and dealing with creatures behind taunts or small elusive creatures. And yes, Shadows, I'm looking at you here. Then we had the 2 Gengar Chieftains. Play. You may ready and fight with a neighbouring creature. That's an out of turn house cheat as well. So again, I'm looking at those big Fozzle Reap turns. If we can attack with our 2 Shooters, which are 5 power as well, dealing some damage in there, taking out some creatures, it could be a potentially big, not only control, but amber ramp as well. When it comes to efficiency, those 2 Coward's End do give us those chains, but we do have, obviously, logos in this deck. So, another 2 artifacts. Library of Babel. Action, draw a card. That's 2 extra cards on your logos turns if they're both out on the field. We have the Helper Bot. Play it, you can play 1 non-logos card. That's an out of turn or out of house card play. And then we have Igor. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck, add 1 to your hand and discard the others. Then we have the Jar Goggle. 2 power, elusive. Put a card from your hand face down under Jar Goggle. Destroyed ability, if it's our turn, we can activate or play that card that's underneath. Otherwise, we archive it. Be very good to put something like that misery exploit, like one of our board wipes underneath, so we can activate it at the perfect time. And that does put some speed on this deck. Recursion. We had the Not Finished With You. Shuffle any number of creatures from your discard pile into your deck. If you have just had a board wipe, if you've had to do it or your opponent's done it, and maybe your deck's a little bit low, you can draw into those a lot quicker, because that is the only recursion we've got. Otherwise, you're just going to be playing cards, trying to cycle as fast as you can. Would work quite well. We do have that logos in there, but that is the only recursion. Disruption. Classic disruption card for Dis, Binding Irons. Chain your opponent for 3, and then we have the Life Ward. One of the other artifacts, artifact number 7, I believe. Omni ability, so you have to wait a turn to use it. Sacrifice it, and your opponent cannot play creatures on their next turn. Pairs very, very well if you're going to combine it with that unlocked gateway. Just pop your Life Ward first, wipe the board, your opponent cannot repopulate it. You basically almost get a free turn, unless they're holding a handful of actions which could just ramp their amber up. There is a key cheat in the deck as well. We do have the final artifact, which is Redacted. Logos artifact, and after you choose Logos, you put an amber on it. Then when there are 4 or more amber on Redacted, you sacrifice it and forge a key at no cost. So if you can call Logos 4 times, that's a free key. It does suffer being bounced back to your hand, and there's always that chance your opponent has Purge artifact control or Destroyed artifact control in there. but it really does put your opponent on a timer, especially if you've already got 1 or 2 keys. There were a few cards that weren't really falling into any of those previous categories. We had the Gub, 1 power. While it's not on the flank, it gets 5 power, or plus 5 power, sorry, and gains Taunt. We had the Quantum Finger Trap, sorry, that wasn't our last artifact, this is. Swap the position of 2 creatures in a battle line. Very good for getting around taunts, and actually very good for setting up for that flamethrower as well. Backup copy was the final card. Logos upgrade. Creature gains destroyed. Put this creature on top of your deck. If there's a specific creature that you want coming back, backup copy, very good. Dust Imp, probably a good shout. Things like Charette, because if your opponent's taken it out, they're getting that 3 amber back. I do feel this deck has great potential, and I do think I'm going to need to set this one up as well and play this one in Archon because it looks fun. So I will let you know how it goes. All that remains for me to say is good luck, have fun, keep forging.